everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How are you? I hope everything has been going well in your world. And for the most part, things have been going well in mine. So, hey, I think these days with the COVID variant that's out there and all the things, the storms on the East Coast and the flooding and all of the fires. And I think if you are a happy person and you have some semblance of being grounded, I think that's a good thing. So excellent. I've been talking a lot to the angelic realm. And these guys and I, we just get on and we talk about all kinds of things. And one of the things we've been talking about, and I've been hearing a lot from people, is that people are wanting to really connect with their angels. And hey, we always connect with our angels. We're always connected to our angels. What I think is so fascinating about all this is that no matter how we slice it with our angelic life and with our angelic beings, we are generally in a position with them to really feel like we have some sort of connection because we get prompts and hints from them all the time. And I guess I somewhat take it for granted that people understand what it's like to get these prompts and these hints from angels. And I think I take that for granted just from the perspective that I hear it all day long. I mean, I hear these angels back there just going on and on and on and doing their thing. And so it's really been brought to my attention through quite a few questions I've received lately of all formats through TikTok. TikTok. That's right. Good old TikTok. I have received so many comments through TikTok that questions that really got my brain thinking in the area of I should probably address some of these questions on this podcast. Because again, I somewhat take it for granted that everybody is going to kind of understand, what the heck I'm talking about when I talk about angelic communication. So some of this might be a little bit of review for those of you that have followed this podcast for years and years. However, I'm going to try to weave in some different material here so it's not a complete redo of other podcasts. And that gets really hard. I run into a planning issue when I'm putting these podcasts together because the podcast has been going on for several years now. And so trying to cover something that I haven't already covered is tough. However, there are always additional pieces of information that comes in about these particular topics that I would like to pass on. So in this particular case, we're talking about angelic communication and we're talking about angels and what they're like. I mean, what are angels like? And I know I've gone over this quite a bit on this podcast. However, there still seems to be a lot of questions in this area. What the heck is an angel like? And, you've heard me talk about the fact that they're not the warmest, fluffiest, puffiest creatures ever. However, I don't want to give you the impression that they don't care about us, because that's not true. They do care about us. They're just not as obsessed with us as we are obsessed with us. And so it's interesting to deal with these creatures because they also don't look at anything the same way that we do. They look at nothing in the same way that we do. They don't look at love in the same way. They certainly don't have the same, quote, morality scale as we do. That's a major human construct. I mean, they have things that they believe in and don't believe in. They have things they'll do and won't do. Yet it's not really an issue of what is moral or not moral. For an angel, it's just either in their operating system or it's not. It's in the highest good of many overlapping time frames or it's not. And if it's not, they just don't do it. I mean, there's not that weird human temptation that we have. We're like, oh, God, should I do it or not? I don't know. Oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, that's just not really a thing. It's really not a thing. So I would tell you that it becomes difficult when you're talking about angels and what they're like to explain them to people without people personifying them and then making them into this jerk. Because if it was a person that acted like an angel, we would think they were either really self-obsessed or really insecure, or we would make all these human things, right? We'd say they were narcissistic or myopic, or boy, they're really sticking to their plan and not considering my feelings, but they're not human. So they're sticking to the overall plan that's best for everybody. And you have to remember the nature of angels. They're quantum beings. They are beings that are in all space-time at one time, okay? All space-time at one time, which really means that, it's not like they're, it's not like they're sitting around going, okay, let me help you with your current problem today. Let's look at today's problems. They're looking at this saying, well, this is the same problem you had 16 lifetimes ago. You haven't championed it then. You haven't championed it this time. We got to wrap around here to try to get you past the speed bump because you keep bringing this back up. Conversely, you have a multiverse in which one of the other versions of you has championed this issue 15 times over. So that's one of the reasons why in this time frame, you're feeling really frustrated about not championing it. Now, what the hell does that mean? Angels operate in multiverses, and there's obviously not just one of us, gang. There's one of us in every multiverse across the multiverses that support this particular representation of reality. Okay, that's not all multiverses. It's just the multiverses that do support. It's kind of think of The Flash. The show The Flash, DC show, where you've got Earth 1 and Earth 25 and Earth 50. Each one of those multiverses has a version of history or what's happening. And it's kind of like the Marvel show, What If? What if you could get in there and change all of these particular outcomes? Well, angels are dealing in not just with you, Joe Blow or Jane Doe, in this particular third dimension in 2021. They're also dealing with versions of you in other particular dimensions, in a whatever the congruent year span would be, with a congruent multiverse running at the same time. We'll just say 2021 in a different dimension. And they're working with all the versions of you. I know that's weird. I know we want to think there's only one of us. And yes, there's only one of you in this dimension. So yes, you're unique in this dimension. Yet you've got other versions of you, of your soul, okay? You're your soul. You are one soul in this dimension. Yet there are reflections of that soul. I'll put it to you that way, like harmonics in music in all these other multiverses. So it's kind of like if you took your one soul and you smushed it out and spread it across many different planes of existence. I know, this is going to make your head hurt. I'm sorry, but people need to know how angels work and how complicated we are so that we can have some real appreciation for them, all right? So you've got one soul and it's spread out over lots of different, we'll call it experiences through multiverses. And let's just say for the sake of keeping this simple, there's 10 of them, okay? So in this lifetime, you might be struggling with money. Maybe in 2 other dimensions, you're a multimillionaire. Maybe in 7 other dimensions, you are dirt poverty, living in a different country, completely not anywhere that you would recognize right now. Now, have you ever wondered why it is that if you've never, ever in this lifetime been an exceptionally wealthy person, have you ever wondered why you miss that lifestyle? Because how can you miss it if you've never had it, right? That doesn't make any sense. Well, you miss it because in either another lifetime in this dimension, you've been very wealthy, or oftentimes in the same life, in another multiverse, you might have a lot more money than you have now. Because in this lifetime, say you're making a decent living, but you're not a bazillionaire, okay? I mean, I make a decent living. I'm certainly not a bazillionaire. My wife is not a bazillionaire. We are a straight up middle class family. And at one time, in this dimension, in the third dimension in 2021, I did financially really, really well at different times in my life when I was a rock star and when I did different TV projects. And there were different times in my life where in this dimension, I had more money. Now, I was never a bazillionaire, yet I can look at pictures online, like of beautiful, crazy, gorgeous, exotic countries like Greece or Morocco or Belize or any of these beautiful places. And I can literally have an almost visceral, I can almost feel what it feels like to actually have a home there that I'm just going to get on my jet and jet off to and hang out in. I mean, for me personally, it goes way beyond just, envisioning and thinking, oh, what would this feel like? This would feel really cool. This literally is something I can feel in my bones, in my body. Now, you guys, gang, I'm not even close to having that kind of income in this life where we can just get on my pretend fake private jet and fly to my pretend fake beach house, okay? That doesn't exist. However, I can viscerally, physically feel it in my body. That tips me off that, okay, there's two things that can tip you off to. A, I might have had a lot of money in a past life. However, it's more likely, since I'm associating that with hopping on a jet and just going someplace, considering that jets were really hard to come by in the 1500s, it's more likely that a version of me in a different multiverse that is currently moving forward and sharing a soul experience, one soul over many dimensions, has a ton of money and jumps on a jet and flies off and has fun. I mean, it's literally something I can feel in my body, which is insane. I grew up the kid of two school teachers and, my dad was a social worker. And I mean, this is not even my reality, right? Private jets. So where do our angels come into all of this? Well, our angels are not even, they're dealing with me in the third dimension, the Danielle who's talking to you right now. And they're also dealing with the Danielle who apparently in some dimension owns a jet and has all kinds of different money issues and other things and a different life. So that angelic connection to all my versions of myself, this gets really confusing, but I'm going to do the best I can to explain this. That angelic connection, that angel is the touch point for my awareness of all these other versions of myself that are scattered across the multiverses. And we're all pretty much, it's one soul moving forward with different outcomes. And the reason I asked an angel, why does this happen? Why aren't we just one soul, one spirit, living one life? Why does this happen that we live across multi-dimensions? And the angel explained it to me that we have so much learning to do. And really, as human souls, we're finite. We don't last in a body forever. We go on forever out of our body. Yet we do the most of our learning down in these physical experiences. And the more we learn, the more compassionate we become. And the more compassionate we become, the more we raise the vibration of the dimension that we occupy. Are you following this? So if I, in 10 other dimensions, if we're all collectively learning, it's one soul spread out over all of these experiences, and if we're all collectively learning at once, then that one soul is going to learn a lot faster, right? Instead of having to come back and back and back and back and back. And really, I've noted that, yes, there are multiverses for other life forms, for our Uturan friends and our Sirius AB friends and our Palladian friends. Our off-world cousins are also existing in these multiverses, and angels are dealing with them also across the board. So why is this important? Well, it's important because a relationship with our angelic beings allows us to understand the fullness of ourself as well. Now, it's not like these beings have some big secret to us. They don't. And when we're quiet in ourselves, we can feel these other projections of our multiverse selves doing whatever it is they're doing. I mean, you've even probably had experiences where maybe you were, the multiverse life recognition is a little different than a past life recognition. Because a past life recognition will be more like, oh, I'm looking through a history book and all of a sudden I fall apart. over this particular battle, or I'm obsessed with Scottish castles. Why? We get into these, roll-arounds somewhat with past lives. Multiverse recognition is more like, wow, I'm having this modern experience with something, and for some reason, I totally know how to do this, or I have a confidence towards this, and I don't exactly know why. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't develop confidence, gang, and go in that direction. Yet our angels are dealing with all of us. I firmly believe in some multiverse, I'm doing some sort of big political work somewhere, because I find myself getting really attracted to civic service and wanting to get in there and do some sort of, gutting of the system and something cool instead. And really, I have no reason to think that way. I've got a great life. Who wants to tangle themselves up in politics? Yet I have no doubt that there is some multiverse version of me that is part of a very evolved political system, that in that particular dimension, we might not be struggling with the same kind of lowbrow stuff that we're struggling here. So I think that version of me, for instance, whomever that person is, probably has a pretty good grasp on how to handle, tough issues. Now, I wanted to put all that out there before we continued on in how to really understand what your angels are like and what they do and how to talk to them. Because it's important to realize they're dealing with the fullness of you across multi-dimensions, the absolute fullness of you. And that's big, and that's a lot, okay? So if you can think about that, then it makes a lot more sense why these beings are so on top of what you need when they're interceding for you, like say in a reading. Of course, they're looking at your past. They're looking at your past lives and who you've been and the stumbling you've done. And they're looking at where you're at now. Yet angels are interesting in that they're not married to our current version of ourself any more than they were married to a past life of us. They literally are, I find this fascinating. They are literally they're not married to one version of us. They're dealing with all of us in multiverses. So they understand us in ways that we don't understand ourselves. They understand capacities we have that we don't understand because we're living in one dimension, one set of laws, one set of rules, one set of spiritual experiences. And again, we're only talking about having one soul. It's not like there's, if one of my versions of myself in another dimension terminates or dies or whatever, we're sort of on I guess you'd say like a multi-tiered reincarnation table too. So it's not like if I die and I'm still alive in another multiverse, but I die in this one, it's kind of like all your multiverse versions have to wait till you die in all of them. And then because it's all one soul, right? Then you can go back up and decide to redisperse and do what you're going to do. Yeah, I know. It gets really weird. So our angels are not necessarily just putting stock in our current timeline that we understand. They're also helping us in other timelines. So we are learning on a spiritually subconscious level all the time. Okay? And I know that's kind of a weird concept. Like, well, wait a minute. If I have one soul and I'm this person and I'm in a body and I'm in Billings, Montana in 2021, how can I also have a body in a different dimension and share a soul? What even does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. I would point you to our off-world cousins from Sirius AB who have a soul group where they themselves share a soul group with maybe 5 or 6 other beings so that they can live huge, long lifespans and share information. In other words, there's one collective soul. The individual consciousnesses are part of this collective, and each one of those is contributing to that collective's awareness, okay? But one might be an auto mechanic, one might be a teacher, one might be an author, one might be a rocket scientist, one might be a brain surgeon, and they're all sharing in real time, in conscious real time, their emotions, the way they think about things. I mean, it's a big soul group. With human beings, it's one soul per body. So that gets a little confusing when we're spread out over multiverses, okay? However, it's one soul per body, per dimension, that gets spread out, kind of like clay. So it's a little different than individuals sharing a life soul. It's one soul spread out. Now, I probably went way too much into that. However, I want to explain that to the best of my ability because your angels are not only working with you, they're working with all of you across multiverses. So when you're asking your angels for help in this third dimension that we're in right now, when you're asking them for help, when you want them to, really work with you and be with you, they are. And they're also sharing wisdom that you have, that other versions of you have, across different multiverses. So when we talk to now we're going to just take let's just ignore the rest of our multiverse selves out there, okay? Let's just pay attention to you in this lifetime. And you want to talk to your angels. You know, the best way to feel them is to go inside of yourself and listen for that little, it feels like a nudge, or I don't mean a whisper that you hear in your ear. I mean a whisper that you feel in your heart chakra, in your chest. There's this like a nudging, like a knowing, I should do this right now. And generally, the prefrontal cortex tries to get involved and overwrite that prompt. We're just getting like a little radio signal that we don't even know is there, that's coming in, that's saying it's an answer to a question generally, like, should I take this job? Should I call my mom? What should I do? And it will be an immediate answer that comes back, and it's very transparent in its delivery. It's this immediate, yes. That's it. It's not like, yes, you should call your mom and make sure you ask her about the casserole she made at the whole entire golf function. It's not like that. It's just a yes. And it has no agenda, yet it's definitive, okay? So look for the prompts that you feel inside of your body that are definitive. Because angels are not going to nuance you to death. They're not going to allegory you. They're not going to show up and, try to give you the dog and pony show to get your attention. They are going to answer your question directly. So oftentimes when I'm in readings with people, somebody's asking a question about subject A, but what the question's really about is a bunch of underlying information that might be actually question B or C. So to answer question A, they might throw me some really strange information. And the client might be like, what are you talking about? I'm asking questions about love and you're talking about my work. What is this? But then we get a little farther into the reading and pretty soon we realize that it's about purpose and the love question is really about purpose in the world and all these other things. Sometimes love's just about love. However, angels are not going to muddy the water with a lot of opinions about your path, okay? So you're in communication in this dimension. We're just talking about you right now. Forget about your other spread out beings out there. That's a little bit of a mind twister. So when you're talking to your angels, just know that they are completely on board with helping you with your questions because they have zero agenda. They don't have an agenda. They are air traffic control for every best possible outcome you're going to make. And yes, they like to help us, but we are not their only job. We're like just a little bit of their daily routine. And we're an important part of their daily routine because we as beings are pretty chaotic and we affect a lot more than we think we do. On the etheric plane, on the vibrational plane, on the energetic plane, we are like elephants with our eyes taped shut, wandering all over a tulip garden. I mean, we just crush things that we don't even realize that we annihilate as human beings. So these angels are constantly working with us to see if they can make sure that we don't crush things we shouldn't. And I find them to be very comforting. Now, you got to consider I've been talking to these guys consciously since I was about 1.5, 2 years old. That's when I realized I was talking to something that wasn't a person and wasn't an off-worlder, because I was yakking with those guys too. This was something different, and it was peaceful and powerful. Yet it just wasn't judgy. It didn't have any agenda. It didn't have any commitment one way or the other to whether I took a bad path or a good path in my mind. It had a commitment on helping me with my choice making. And if I decided to take a really crappy path and go off-worlding into emotional pain 101, well, they look at it as something we've chosen to do that probably they wouldn't choose to do. However, they're just kind of like, well, okay, this is what you're doing. I can't stop you, so go right ahead. And they really do help try to keep the puck between the lines in that very difficult path we've chosen to minimize our damage, because the damage is just not to ourselves. They're looking ahead at the past, present, future. They're looking ahead at every life we're going to impact in a bizarre way. Those angels are conferring about, okay, what's the ricochet effect of this person's really crappy set of choices right now? All the angelic teams are cracking down at one time, crunching timelines, crunching probabilities, 24/7, and then getting back to me if I'm asking about this for a client. Like it's no big deal. Literally, they're just like, okay, well, you could do that, but here's a couple of suggestions. And, it really does seem like inside of you, you've got these other really big desires. So let's talk about that. And let's maybe shelf this or that particular ideal. So it's fascinating to me that these beings who really don't have a preoccupation with whether we come out on top or not, they just have a preoccupation with making sure that we learn a ton from whatever path that we are choosing. And of course, they want us to make, quote, good choices. Yet by their calculation, if we are learning, we're making great choices. And sometimes human beings, we just choose to learn in some really destructive ways. We just do. So your angels are always going to speak to you in this direct. It doesn't feel big. It just feels just like this inner knowing. Sometimes people call that their higher self. My higher self knows this. And really, our higher self is in communication with all of our other multiverse selves. So that higher self knows a lot. And those angels are in communication with that higher self. So it's kind of hard to tell between them and that higher self, but it really doesn't matter, because the main point here is that they are in constant contact with us. Sometimes even down to what we're eating. I'm not kidding. I had a client one time, and whenever I share client stories, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that I only share client stories with people who have given me permission to share their stories. So if you're out there and you had a reading with me and you're like, oh my God, I'm never getting a reading with her again, I'm going to end up on a podcast, don't worry about that. I'm in the process of compiling a number of stories right now, because I'm writing this book that's all about how angels work so that we can more learn to trust ourselves. That's kind of weird, right? To talk about angels so we can learn to trust ourselves. You know who really trusts us to make the decisions in our learning curve that are best for us? That spirit creator God, angels, that whole system, however you look at higher power, goddess, universe, the quantum field, whatever you call that. I'll just say God, so we know what I'm talking about here. But that God energy, that God being, really does trust us to make our own decisions. And as such, these angels trust us as well to make our own decisions. And they're not going to interfere, although sometimes they do throw themselves down, like putting a cloak across a muddy puddle when we're on a walk. You know how the gentlemen used to do that for the ladies, so the ladies wouldn't have to walk in the mud, which is lovely. But the angels will do that also energetically sometimes. If the impact that we're going to have in that particular timeline is not only terrible for us, but also subsequently makes really, really bad things happen for multiverses around us. Or in our particular dimension, say if I have 95 martinis and I drink and drive, and I end up killing a family, that angel, if taking the family out of the timeline is going to create too much havoc, which obviously it would, but I mean, and havoc even worse than the grief and the sadness and all the things, then that angel is literally going to throw itself between me and, whatever oncoming traffic. It's going to lose my keys. It's going to do all kinds of things to make sure that I don't disrupt things to that degree. And to that degree, I mean, it's going to make it rough in too many timelines, and it's an unnecessary chaotic burst that changes too many things. Then that angel's going to intervene, okay? And they are constantly intervening for us in ways that we don't even recognize, to be honest. So it's really phenomenal when we realize that they're playing air traffic control for us all the time. I mean, all the time. And that's really impactful. So when you're talking to their angels, and I know I make them sound like robotic weirdos, and I probably shouldn't, but that's the most, I guess, humanized version I can give you, is if I'm sitting here talking to my angel and I'm like, man, I really want to move to Panama. I really want to move to some crazy, wonderful country that's all tropical. And, is that a good right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is just my inner voice, or talking to God or whatever. Is that something I should do? Is that really something I should consider? There will be, first you'll feel the angelic communication in your body. You'll feel it in your body first. You might feel it in your stomach or your solar plexus. You might feel it in your chest. You're going to feel it somewhere in your body. And I'll do it right now, live, going to the recording here. I'll talk to my angels and tell you where I'm feeling it. So I say to my angels, my daughter's going to be out of high school in 2 years. And my wife and I just aren't sure where we're going to be living. And I'm thinking about all these fabulous places. And Greece, I'd love to live in Greece. What does Greece look like? Now, I want to tell you, before I was thinking Greece, my mouth was trying to form Greece. Before I even got the word out, my brain formulated the thought Greece and went off to the ethers, because the angels are hardwired inside of you. So they're hearing all your inner dialogue. They're hearing all your stuff. Good times, just like God does. And they're kind of tuning out what's not necessary. They're not like, IRS people tapping your phone, trying to figure out if you've screwed over the government. They're not doing that. They've got this constant background program that's running. And when there's an energetic shift and they are called up, or you're talking to them, they can feel that. So they start paying attention. They really don't care that we have sex. They don't care that we're down here drinking and carrying on, or taking a shower, or going to the bathroom. I mean, they know we're mammals, so they're that's just not really their duty roster, so they're just letting us do whatever. Yeah, when I was asking, okay, should I go to Greece with Rebecca? Should we move to Greece? Before I even got Greece out, I got this funny feeling in my stomach, right down where my solar plexus is, right down in my belly. And the funny feeling was, and then it was like a little bit of like a, ugh. And it was just a bit of dread that came right up into my solar plexus. Now, it wasn't a terrible feeling, but it wasn't that warm, fuzzy, ooh, okay, I think I'll do that. It wasn't even that higher solar plexus butterflies, like you're nervous about something. It was just kind of a, oh, yeah, no. The funny part is I did have a past life with Rebecca in Greece. And I'd love to visit Greece. And of course, who wouldn't love a rooftop villa in Greece? I mean, like Mamma Mia. Come on, man. But I said that. knowing that I had a great life in Greece with my wife in another lifetime. And even saying it again, should we move to Greece? I don't even get the entire question out. And I'm feeling that kind of dread, not really feeling in my stomach and solar plexus. And I'm feeling it before the question is even out of my mouth. That's our angelic communication. They work with us through our body. They realize that we are chemical beings. They realize that we're mammals full of chemicals, and, we're rocking and rolling over here doing our thing. So what I think is so fascinating here is that not only do we feel their answer in our body before we physically can even think about their answer, yet they're going to answer us before the entire question is even formulated, because they already are looking at the question nanoseconds and seconds and minutes ahead of what we're asking. They know what that question's going to be. Now, we do have to initiate the question. That's the catch-22. Angels aren't just going to drop us a bunch of information, because if we're not consciously paying attention, gang, how the heck do we know what the answer is supposed to mean, right? So pay attention to how your body feels when you are aligning with these angel questions. Here's another one. I'm just going to put out there. So I'm talking to my angels right now for real. And I'm saying, okay, should we build, is it a good idea to build a cabin on the land that we had? The land burnt down, and should we build a cabin? And before I even get the second question after I said the land burned down, which it did this year, that was super unfortunate. Before I even get that out, when I said build a cabin, my heart chakra opened up, okay? And so now I've got an open heart chakra. It feels warm and fuzzy. So I keep talking, and I'm saying, should we build this cabin? And I'm thinking, and I didn't say it just now, but maybe next summer or whatever. What I'm getting through my heart is the number 3. 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. Immediately they're showing me, well, probably in about 3 years, you'll decide to build a cabin out there. Which is probably about right, because I can't handle going out there and looking. I mean, you guys, it looks like a bomb was dropped out there. That property was just razed by fire. It was just, ugh. And we didn't have any structures, but the grass and the sagebrush, and luckily it didn't take the one tree out there. But I could see it. 3 years. It's probably going to be 3 years. And when I felt that in my chest, I just let it go. I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to do anything before then anyway. Now, you have to understand that I've got a lot of experience, just dealing with how these angels feel in my body. Yet where we get into trouble is when we try to make the angels into people in how they would answer us. That's problematic, because they're going to respond to us in a way that we will emotionally understand them, but it doesn't mean they're actually experiencing those same emotions, okay? They're going to trigger in our brains the chemicals that are necessary to communicate to us the message. And the reason they do that is human beings, gang, we will not take anything seriously that we can't feel. That's a true story. We are empathic creatures, and if we can't feel something in our body, we ain't doing it. Not doing it. Not doing it. How many times have you been set up with somebody in your life, like a date? Remember those when we used to have person-to-person dates before COVID ate the whole earth? And you would be getting ready for your date, and you're thinking, oh man, I hope I really like this person. And sometimes you would get that butterfly, that high up, really wonderful feeling in your solar plexus, like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait. And then other times you'd be like, ooh, this just feels like it's going to be a drag. I don't know why. The person is super attractive. They've seemed really nice through text, but wow, this is going to be weird. And when you get there, the experience, sometimes you're surprised. Sometimes it's just anxiety and we don't want to meet new people and we're butts. Yet usually we got a good gut about things. We trust our guts. We are mammals. We are creatures that are full of chemicals, okay? Our spirit uses chemicals to communicate need, want, desire, pain, fear, love. Our spirit communicates those base functions with us through triggering synaptic activity in our brain that's electromagnetic, that's electricity. The spirit is arcing through the brain like crazy. So the brain releases the chemicals. So the physical body understands what the hell is going on. So our angels will make sure that we have the appropriate chemicals triggered so we will understand. Please hear me when I tell you they don't have those same chemicals. They don't have a body, dude. They are not sitting there going, oh my God, I'm eating potato chips because I'm PMSing and maybe I don't feel like helping my person today. They're not even that way. Angels are they're fanatical about what they're fanatical about. And they could give one rat's flying butt about what they don't care about. And you happen to be on the list of things that they care about. So angels are, by the very nature of who and what they are fanatical about helping you. And they have to help you because your personal guardian angels, as I've said many times throughout the lifetime of this podcast, over the last 17 years in my work, our angels are soldered to us and we're kind of soldered to them. And it's not that this higher power God makes these angels to serve us. Okay, that's a really grotesque human misinterpretation of assistance that they give us. And you got to remember that really came through the Christian Bible. And the Christian Bible, of course, is an offshoot of the Torah, of the the Hebrew teachings. And then it went to the Greek conversion factory for the New Testament. So you got to remember, though, that we don't really, especially with our ancient peoples, they didn't really understand the concept of helping somebody, just to help them. That didn't make a lot of sense. There had to be a reason that somebody was waiting on you hand and foot. And the only way that our ancient peoples could really make sense of this was to translate stewardship or service or union. We're in union with our angelic life. We're doing stuff over here that they're learning from. They love to learn. They're constantly learning. They're ridiculously brilliant creatures. They are so much fun. And they really are fun to have conversations with. I'll get to that in a minute. However, they're not serving us. They're not the butler. They're not the maid. They're not, in envy of us. Angels envy us. That's what the Bible says, but it's not ever been my experience they envy us. It's been my experience they're fascinated by us and they study us and they learn from us. And sometimes they're a little perplexed, like, wow, that's a lot of unnecessary chemical expulsion over one experience. As we're having a meltdown about something in our life, they're just kind of sitting there waiting until we're done and they're logging every single emotional experience we have. And they're finding it super fascinating because they're just simply not wired to be so reactive like we are. So they learn from the reactivity. It's like learning a different language, right? I mean, if you think about human beings that are born on the spectrum, especially folks who, the former diagnoses of Asperger's, folks on the spectrum are now, they're finding, they're just fine in society. They just have to learn the cues that don't really come naturally to them. What is a hesitation? What is a facial expression? They don't really understand why that's important. So they have to learn it, just like if I was going to learn French. I'd have to learn all the conjugations. I'd have to learn vocabulary words. I'd have to learn the prononciation. Sorry to all my French friends. Don't throw up in your mouth. So, you have to learn it, right? So they learn from us. We learn from them. So angels are not sitting over there envying us and wishing really like crazy they could have a human body that could get constipated and bloat. Yeah, they're really not They're not looking for that experience. Once in a while, an angel will come down and be corporeal. It'll have a body real briefly for just something it's trying to get done. You'll hear stories of somebody trapped at the bottom of a boat that's capsized, and all of a sudden somebody just shows up in a plaid shirt, and they're like, "Hi, can I help you out of this air pocket that you're in?" And that person feels really calm around this weird person. Why are you 40 feet under the water without an air tank? But okay. And the person says, "Okay, well, hold your breath." And then up you go. And as soon as you hit the surface, then there's a boat coming, and you're waving and waving, and you turn around to thank your friend, and there's nobody there. Angels can temporarily be corporeal. Yet, if you do, and that does happen sometimes, if you do run across an angel that's parked itself in a human body for a particular reason, and there are reasons for it, you'll know that person feels just different. They feel different. They feel like they're on this extremely high vibration. They are a little odd. And they may either they under communicate or they over communicate, yet the communication is really lovely and warm, but you're probably not going to remember 100% of it because if there's one of them down there, there's usually many others through the ethereal barrier that are working with the one that's down there to accomplish a goal. Let me give you an example. So let's just pretend that you're walking home late at night, you had a party, or you're at a party, and you didn't want to drive, so you only have to walk like 5-6 blocks to your house. So you're walking back, and you're crocked. You had a hell of a good night. Of course, I've never done this, but I've heard other people have. So you're walking back, and you see this person across the street just sort of tailing you, and you're wondering, like, what the hell? What the hell is this person? And they're looking at you weird. And then maybe there's another one that comes up, and the one is across the street from you. And then all of a sudden there's one right behind you. And it's weird. And they're walking in like a perfect equidistant length from you. And then all of a sudden there's one that appears before you. And they kind of turn around, and everybody's wearing a hoodie and looking sketchy and whatever. Maybe a bunch of white boys with creepy tattoos. Who knows? And you're kind of getting the point through your inebriation that maybe something really bad is about to happen. And you're reaching into your pockets and you're figuring out, okay, how much cash do I have? What are they going to ask for? Okay, great, So there's this whole mugging setup happening, and you can feel it. You can feel things like that a lot of times, even through one's drunkenness. Well, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, this person just starts walking up next to you, and angels are always dressed in the weirdest clothes. Like they're always trying to look really downplayed. And sometimes it's almost too much. Like you just want to say, where did you come from, Farmer Brown? Like high-waisted jeans, and they love plaid and flannel shirt and slick back hair and these big dimples, and could be this very chatty guy, and he's just talking at the top of his lungs. Hey there, I happen to notice you're walking this too. I'm going this way too. Do you care if I walk with you? I would really love to walk with you. Hey, did you go to that party? I was at that party. I think I saw you at that party. And they talk loudly, and they talk at the top of their lungs. And there's also something about this being that makes you automatically just crazy calm around them. Because normally you'd be like, great, I got these 3 weirdos in their white boy hoodies with their white boy creeper tattoos, and here comes a super white boy, and he's all got his hair slicked back. It doesn't have to be white. That angel could walk up to you. It could be dressed in a black suit or an Arab suit. It could be dressed in so many different things. An East Indian suit. Could be dressed in anything. However, you're going to notice, you're not going to really remember too much about the individual conversation. You're going to remember how that being felt. And you're going to notice that the weirdos that were tailing you suddenly just start peeling off. They just disappear. The vibration around you has changed. Now there's this big strapping human being walking next to you. And they just start to peel off and bug off. And so then you're talking to this person, could be male or female. Probably in that case, we'll just make it a big old male, okay? body that this angel is wearing. And then you get to your car and you're fishing out your keys and this thing has been talking your ear off the whole time. And so you go to turn around to tell your nice, weird new friend thanks and, hope you have a great night. And you turn around and that being's just gone. That's a typical angel encounter. Or they'll come up if you're really in a really scary space. They'll come up, like say you're in a car accident and you can't get out, and they'll just come and talk to you, and they'll look like a priest, or they'll look like a policeman or a fireman. And they'll come up and they'll be really calm and really chill and just happy. Hey, it's okay. Just, how are you? Don't you worry. We got people coming right away. And then when you ask about that priest or that firefighter or whatever, nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. So angels will come help us, and they'll put on a person suit and they will impersonate a person to the best of their abilities. And sometimes they really enjoy that. And I always think that's kind of funny. They really get into that. But as we wrap this around, why would they bother doing that? Well, maybe if you got mugged that night, not only is that bad for you, but perhaps it spins one of these other people that was going to mug you. Maybe one of them was a woman. I'm being sexist. Who knows? Then it's going to spin that person's life into a really weird trajectory that maybe causes way more problems than necessary. So, just a little intervention right there keeps the puck between the lines well enough that it just staves off something that doesn't need to happen. It's really interesting. And so our angels are also constantly working with the vibrations around us. They're constantly giving us weird gut feelings. Yes, we are too. These are also our own feelings. Yeah, you can always tell the angelic feelings that pop in because they really do pretty much come out of nowhere. I mean, you're busy doing A, B, and C, and this weird prompt just comes over you out of no place. That's an angel prompt. So I tell these stories to offset some of the impression I think I've given some out there that these beings absolutely have zero personality. I mean, that's kind of how they come off to me. It doesn't mean they don't have a personality. They're just different. They're different. They always are very loving, however. And they're not going to experience the same kind of love that we experience. Again, they're fanatically passionate, but it's not the same kind of chemical love that we have, where we've got the dopamine and the serotonin and all the good feeling chemicals that happen. Their love is just this radiant peace that is completely all accepting, zero judgment. We might think of that also, if for those of you that do believe in God, you might think of God that way. Like God is, I hope you think of God that way, not a judgy asshat who sits in heaven and wags its angry finger at you. Yet angels are on that God frequency. That they work with that quantum being. They work with creation and creator, and they work with us. And we are on the God vibration as well. We've got that God particle floating in us as well. We don't believe that, so we really do some crazy crap because we don't believe that. Yet what I would tell you is the best way to feel your angels is you'll just feel this overwhelming acceptance that comes from them. Just acceptance. And I've been in readings with folks, and the angels start coming forward. They're angels. So we can chit-chat about what this person may need. And the person that I'm speaking with, they will literally just start to cry, especially if the angel who walks with their heart is their primary intercessor. If that angel, of course, is the being that's going to come forward and speak to me on their behalf, that's locked right into their heart chakra, okay? That angel is fused to that heart chakra. And so as that being comes, quote, closer into the etheric field so that I may more easily access that being in communication, that person is also aware that that being is coming forward. So I will watch people just burst into tears And they'll apologize. Never apologize. If I'm ever on a reading with you and your angels come forward and you start crying, you have nothing to apologize for, because the tears are release. The tears are being in the presence of absolutely no judgment whatsoever. And the angels are also, on a spiritually subconscious level, asking us to give away the judgment of ourselves. And that's really tough, because any of us that live in modern America, we've been taught to judge ourselves harshly. And as we judge ourselves, we think that that's self-improvement. Now, you can improve yourself, and that's different from judging yourself. You can make your assessments about what you need improvements on and take action on that. But just sitting in judgment of yourself, right? That's super counterproductive and super old world and 20th century. So angels will come forward. You will feel this unbelievable wash of love that you're not even sure what to do with that incredible wash of love. It's so big. It's so massive. It's so beautiful. It's just something, okay? So as you feel that incredible wash of love, you're also going to want to just open up about everything. So you can feel your angels come through if you ever feel like you finally can give yourself a break. If you're beating yourself up about something and all of a sudden you just feel this acceptance come over you, that's also that God energy, or some people call it Holy Spirit energy. Yet it really is the energy that your angels carry with you. You got to remember, they're not people. They're not here to learn our same lessons. And they absolutely positively are going to make sure that you feel confident and calm while they're there. That's a big part of what makes them tick. They want you to feel amazing about them being there, and they want you to feel that you can trust them, because you can. And angels have zero interest in leading you down a crappy path. That doesn't serve them in any way. That makes their job harder, in fact. So oftentimes, a lot of what we struggle with in our angelic communication is trust. We're struggling with trust with ourselves. Like, do I trust myself that I'm feeling this correctly? Well, trust your body, gang. The only time we have to really wonder about our body responses, if you're somebody that has had a ton of trauma, a ton of physical trauma, you might have some body cues out of post-traumatic stress or anxiety that may kind of throw you a curveball once in a while. Yet it doesn't mean that your angels aren't still working through that construct that you have. It's not like, oh God, I was abused and therefore I'm damaged goods and I'm never going to be able to feel my angels. That's just not true. It's just not true. So, one of the things that I feel is important is that as we go forward in this scope, as we go forward, we first and foremost in our angelic communication and understanding our angels have got to trust that there's a system bigger than ourselves. And we've got to trust that this system is literally here to co-create amazingness with us and is there for our highest good. And that's all true. That's really true. And until we can give ourselves permission to actually believe this and trust this communication and trust that whether you believe in a traditional God or a being or a universal consciousness or what, whether we want it to be true or not, there is this massive force of love out there. That is what has been trying to contact us and work with us. That massive consciousness, that being consciousness, that's a real thing, okay? And however that makes sense to you, go for it. Yet it is an actual real thing. And it's where our spirit aligns. It's where our soul aligns. Even for those of us that have had harder lives in our younger years, maybe your life is hard right now, yet our natural alignment is towards this love creation, this love plane, this love being. And especially with, when we're dealing with our angelic beings, they are part of that love. So we've got to trust on some level that something's going on that's bigger than just our little hiccup and our self and our multiverse little learning path. And it's okay to let your body translate these messages for you. And again, if you're somebody who has body trauma or different things that give you sometimes body cues that aren't always what you're looking for, there's a lot of great people that can help you with that. There's incredible empaths out there who are trauma therapists who are just brilliant. And they can help you, work through your own impulses versus impulses that come from other places, like an angelic connection. There's a lot of our plant medicines, our psychedelic medicines. I'm certainly no psychiatrist. Neither am I a plant medicine practitioner. Yet a lot of our plant medicines are really amazing. And we end up having some really powerful responses when our brain is told to reroute itself a little bit with just a little cybacillin here and there. Our brain is just like, wait, I can't go into my same trauma response. Wait a minute. So, gang, there's a lot we can learn about our angels, and I hope this helps you in understanding how they work with you. They do work through the body. They do give you these immediate answers before your thought is even finished, yet you got to at least form the thought, because they're not allowed to just shove us answers with no question. We'd be very confused and not know what they were talking about. And know that they are full of passion for helping you, and they are full of passion for conveying to you that you are this incredible miracle creature that is capable of anything. And whereas a life coach wants to see you succeed and get a new job and, master that relationship and all the things, your angels literally want to see you become the superhero that they believe you to be. They do. They want to see you become the miracle and the just astounding being that they know that you are. So they're not going to push you, but they're going to encourage you to take those trust risks that we think they're risks, but they're not, in order to step outside of your box and become the superhero that they know you are. And they are there for you and they support you. So work with your body responses. Work with understanding when you get those answers before your question's even done. No, that's not your consciousness stepping on top of you. Did you know that your brain is not actually capable of thinking of more than one thing at a time? You think it is, but it's not. The brain is firing a zillion times a second, thinking of one thing at a time. So as you're formulating this thought about Greece and all of a sudden it's like, probably not this life. That's 2 thoughts in your head at once. Think about that. That's your angels. And they do love you. And so do I. And I will see you next podcast.